India and Taiwan have been growing their relationship in many folds, whether it's semiconductors, whether it's people-to-people relationship. With me is the Taiwanese Foreign Minister joining us. Welcome to WION. It's pleasure to have you with us. My first question to you is, how do you see India-Taiwan relationship growing forward?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibbal. I'm delighted to be on your show. The relations between Taiwan and India have been growing tremendously in every aspect. For instance, in the cultural aspect, there are all kinds of cultural activities here in Taiwan, like Diwali celebration or Holi celebration, and I personally have been in those celebrations. And people here appreciate that those activities are being held here in Taiwan. And the Indian movies have also been very popular here in Taiwan. Some of most recent movies have been very, very popular, including myself being having a lot of fun watching those movies. And in the economic area, the trade volume in the last 2 years also have surpassed $8 billion, and this is a tremendous amount of trade in between Taiwan and India. And in terms of high-tech cooperation, it is also the same. Taiwanese high-tech company, the PSMC, has already cooperated with Tata Electronics, and they will set up semiconductor production in India. And this is going to be a tremendous step forward in the economic cooperation in between Taiwan and India. And of course, the Indian government has been paying more attention to this area as well. For instance, Prime Minister Modi has commented on his Twitter a couple of times in the last 2 months or so, commented on Taiwan. The first was when the PSMC and Tata signed the agreement and started to plan for their operation in India. And the second time was he commented on the earthquake in Taiwan and showed his sympathy and condolences. And all these are highly appreciated here in Taiwan. And the Indian government has also been commenting that the peace and stability over the Taiwan Strait is very important, and that wins the hearts and minds of the Taiwanese people. So in a nutshell, the relations between Taiwan and India are very warm, and it's getting better and better.
So you mentioned about the Indian Prime Minister sending his condolences after the earthquake we saw in Taiwan. So essentially, how do you see the mentioning of Taiwan and sending condolences directly to the people of Taiwan by the Indian leadership?
People here are heartfelt. We are very touched that Prime Minister Modi, even though he's running for election right now, he's supposed to be very busy, but it still takes time to tweet about the earthquake here in Taiwan, sending condolences and sympathy and support for the Taiwanese people at this very difficult time. And the president over here, the prime minister or our vice president, who is our president-elect, and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, all retweeted to show our appreciation to Prime Minister Modi for showing his support for Taiwan.
Semiconductors, another area of convergence between the two sides. You have already directly mentioned about it in your initial statement. But how do you see the convergences growing and Taiwanese companies coming to India and helping India build its own capacity in the semiconductor space?
I think this is very important. People understand that Taiwan is a major producer of semiconductor products. We produce about 90% of the highest end of the semiconductor chips. But it is still not enough to meet the demand of the international community. And at the same time, China has also been producing semiconductors, even though it's like 3-4 generations in the production away from Taiwan. But people started to understand that China may not be a reliable partner in high-tech production. And therefore, people are looking for an alternative. And when people see India, which is a democracy, which is a reliable partner, and which also provides abundance of skilled engineers and laborers. So making investment in India or entering into cooperation with Indian electronics or manufacturer becomes a viable option. So this starts a new trend. The Taiwan semiconductor industry starts working with Indian companies to make sure that the production of semiconductor manufacturing products can be set up in India to make India a replacement of China sometimes in the near future. And we will continue to work together with the Indian government and Indian industries to make sure that this process is smooth.
Two things which perhaps everyone is waiting for is, when does Taiwan plan to open its another office in India, that is in Mumbai, because there has been announcements regarding that, and also the mobility pact as well. We know it's already signed. So when can we see the implementation? When can the first batch of Indians are planning to go to Taiwan?
The first is about our office in Bombay. We have already sent our officials to Bombay already, and they have been making contacts with the people, government officials, and also the businessmen over there. They started their work already, but the office is in the process of interior decoration. And I believe that in the second half of the year, the office will be ready to operate, but our people are already there. And we have a high hope of connecting Taiwan with a grand Bombay area, either in the business context or other type of contacts. And we also have our tourism bureau setting up its operation in Bombay already. So we hope we can attract more Indians to come over to Taiwan or to promote Taiwanese people traveling to Bombay for all kinds of purposes. And another issue you mentioned is about the mobility agreement with each other. You probably know that Taiwan is still a rapidly growing economy. And under these circumstances, we need skilled laborers. We need a lot of people to fill all kinds of vacancies. And right now, we still have shortages. And at the same time, India is a huge country that can provide a lot of skilled laborers or workforces to fit Taiwan's needs. And we have already signed an agreement with each other. And therefore, we will try to encourage our companies here in Taiwan, our industries here in Taiwan, to match their need with the Indian counterparts, so that we can start having more Indians to come over to Taiwan, either to work over here or to enjoy their life here. And we will be very happy if there are more Indians find Taiwan as their home. Currently, we have close to 3,000 Indian students studying in Taiwan. And we also have about 500 postdoc positions available to the Indians. So actually, we already have some Indian community here in Taiwan, and they are very active. They are so active that we call them unofficial ambassadors to Taiwan. So Taiwan population is very welcoming to the Indians who would come to Taiwan to find Taiwan their second home. And we'll continue to work in that regard to have more Indians coming over here. And that mobility pact is going to have that purpose.
So let me just go to the other aspects in the Indo-Pacific. We've already talked about Taiwan and India. What's the situation like in the Taiwan Straits? If you can give your perspective, how volatile the situation is, because that is a concerning development.
The situation is, as you said, the Chinese have been putting pressure on Taiwan. They conduct military exercises around Taiwan very often. And as we speak right now, the Chinese are flying their aircraft sorties to Taiwan. They also have their warships conducting exercises not far from Taiwan. And also, they are also engaging in economic pressure against Taiwan. And they also do something that we call hybrid warfare, disinformation campaign, cognitive warfare, infiltration into Taiwan societies, diplomatic isolation attempts, and etc. But these have been going on for quite some time, even though the Chinese have been intensifying their pressure against Taiwan. But we have been able to maintain peace and stability in this area in relative terms. Several things we are adopting right at this point. The first is our policy. Our policy, in order for us to be able to maintain peace and stability in this area, the government has been pursuing a very responsible, very moderate policy toward China or toward other members of the international community. And at the same time, we are trying to strengthen our defense capabilities to deter the Chinese from thinking about using force against Taiwan. And at the same time, the international community, especially the major democracies around the world, also understand any conflict involving Taiwan is going to be a disaster for the rest of the world. So they're trying to posture in this region, trying to build new coalitions or new alliance systems. Last year, there was a new alliance system. We call it a Camp David Alliance in between the United States, Japan, and Korea. And what's happening right now is that the United States, Japan, and the Philippines are also beefing up their security cooperation. And other than that, there's also AUKUS. They're also strengthening their security presence in this region. We all understand that in order to deter the Chinese from thinking about using force against Taiwan, we need to be able to deter the Chinese. And this is what we have been doing. And because of the effort of the Taiwanese government and also the major democratic partners, we should be able to make peace maintain peace in this region. And if you look at major announcement from every time there's a major gatherings like what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now, they all talk about the importance of peace and stability over the Taiwan Strait. And they say that peace and stability over the Taiwan Strait is an indispensable element of global security and prosperity. And this has become an international consensus that we need to maintain peace and stability in this region.
So we have seen the visit of the former Taiwanese president to Beijing, where he met the Chinese president. We have seen comments by the Chinese president as well that nobody could stop the reunion as well. That's the Chinese word which has been used by the Chinese president. He has been using those lines in the past as well. What do you make of the visit and these comments by the Chinese president?
Thank you very much for mentioning this issue. It has to come back to the basics. The basics is that Taiwan is a democracy, and we allow all kinds of activities or all kinds of comments to be made here in Taiwan. Taiwan is just as democratic as India. And of course, in India, there are all kinds of people, all kinds of advocacies, and all kinds of comments coming on politics or on international relations. And these should also be respected as part of Taiwan's democracy. But since Taiwan is a democracy, and therefore we need to gauge what kind of comments is getting the majority of the public opinion. And we do public opinion surveys here in Taiwan all the time. And most of the people here in Taiwan would like to maintain the status quo across the Taiwan Strait. It's about 80% or more. And those who would advocate the lines advocated by President Ma, former President Ma, is in a very small minority. And those who would advocate to change the status quo in a rapid way to divide Taiwan and China is also a small minority. So absolute majority of the people here in Taiwan would like to maintain the status quo across the Taiwan Strait. So that is the way we look at former President Ma's visit to China. And when the Chinese government says that Taiwan has to unify with China, the majority of the people here do not see it that way. We want to maintain the status quo, and the status quo is that Taiwan is not run by the PRC. And we don't want to see a day that the authoritarian China or communist China is going to have its jurisdiction over Taiwan. That is not what we're going to accept.
And there is a trilateral also happening in Washington, the Japan, Philippines and US trilateral. We have seen comments or perhaps more aggressive actions coming from North Korea as well. What do you make of these meetings and these stance coming from North Korea?
If you look at the broader perspective, the international situation that we see, the geostrategic situation, is that democracies around the world are more united than before in dealing with a united authoritarian bloc. If you look at the cooperation in between Russia and China, and this is a situation the fellow democracies don't like to see. And aligning with China and Russia is North Korea and Iran, and especially North Korea. They've been testing their missiles, firing their rockets to intimidate other countries in this region, and that is wrecking peace and stability in this region. And at the same time, North Korea has been providing a lot of ammunition to Russia, for Russia to continue its aggression against Ukraine. So these authoritarian forces are coming together, and they are in a very rapid mode of expansion. And if you look at China's expansionism in this part of the world, they are disturbing peace in the East China Sea, and they are threatening Taiwan in the South China, in the Taiwan Strait, and they are also causing a lot of trouble in the South China Sea. And this is China. And it's not only the troubles within the First Island chain, it's also the problem of the Chinese expansionism in the Pacific. And it's not just in the Pacific. You know, if you look at Indian Ocean, I'm sure this is a region our Indian friends care a lot more about. Look at those dots. China has been trying to connect, including the ports in Myanmar, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and also in Djibouti. China calls it their strategy of pearl string, or string of pearl strategy.
Coming back to the India aspect of the relationship, a new government will be taking charge very soon in Taiwan. Have you invited India or Indian representatives to be present at the oath-taking ceremony that will take place in Taiwan?
We are going to have the inauguration on May 20th. But we also understand that during this period of time, India is running its national election. And we know that you are very busy, busy over the election. So we did not make a special invitation to our Indian friends to come over during this period of time. But of course, you have ITA, the Indian Taipei Association, which represent the Indian government. And the head of the ITA will be cordially invited to take part in our inauguration. And we hope that anyone who is watching Taiwan closely can enjoy that moment of a peaceful transfer of power in Taiwan. And that will be a moment of joy for Taiwan and also for democracy.
Sir, regarding the mobility pact, we saw certain comments emerging from Taiwan. We saw certain social media posts as well, which are seen as connected to the Chinese propaganda. If you can perhaps give your perspective on that.
Yes. As I said a little bit earlier, the mobility pact is a very good agreement in between Taiwan and India, because India has a lot of very good workers to work overseas. But at the same time, Taiwan needs more workers to come in. And therefore, that is a mutually beneficial type of agreement that all the government officials here would welcome. But at the same time, the Chinese government would like to see that any closer relationship between Taiwan and India are something that they don't want to see. So they unleashed some disinformation campaign against Taiwan. Our security apparatus detected that there was about 1,000 new accounts started releasing all kinds of hatred against Indians, or those comments that would create trouble in between Taiwan and India. But fortunately, the government officials, together with some experts here in Taiwan, are telling the people that these are fabricated by the Chinese government. And I think the majority of the people believe that those comments are not fair to India, and it's also not good for Taiwan. So we quickly quiet down those kinds of vicious attacks against this mobility pact. And at the same time, we also try to explain to the Indian friends that those comments are not made by the Taiwanese people. they are fabricated by the Chinese government. And I think our Indian friends understand that now. And talking about disinformation campaign or election interference, we also went through a democratic election in January this year. And there's a lot of interference efforts by the PRC to try to shape the results of the election over here. And disinformation campaign is certainly one of them. But we have been going through a lot of these kinds of vicious attacks already, and therefore, we gain some experience. There's a good saying that whatever doesn't kill you will make you stronger, and that is the case of Taiwan. And because we have learned a thing or two over the election interference or disinformation campaign, cognitive warfare, information manipulation, things like that. And at the same time, India is also going through election. And I'm sure the Chinese would like to play this open environment to shape the minds of the Indian people. And in that sense, maybe it will be good for the two countries to think about possible cooperation in this area so that we can strengthen our guards against the disinformation campaign initiated by the PRC.
India recently announced its third highest civilian award to a Taiwanese national. How do you see this gesture by the Indian government to award one of the highest awards to the Taiwanese tycoon?
Yes, this is very good. And this is a recognition of Taiwanese businessmen and his contribution to the Indian economic development. And we treasure that. And we would like to use it as an example of Indian society, Indian government welcoming Taiwan's businessmen. India is actually a very welcoming society to Taiwan's investment. And we will use that to encourage more Taiwanese businessmen to look at India as a very good alternative to the PRC.
Mm-hmm. So my final question to you is, you have given us an interview and perhaps as the view from Taiwan goes, this will help in people-to-people relationship as well. How do you perhaps preempt a reaction given that it is likely and it is definitive that the Chinese embassy here in Delhi will be sharply reacting? So anything you would like to react before they react to your interview to us?
Let me tell you some of my personal experiences. The Chinese government has already sanctioned me. And they not only sanctioned me, but they sanctioned me as the first of one of the first three people here in Taiwan. But it made me more popular. So don't be afraid of the Chinese criticism or reactions or protest. Because when you feel that the Chinese are somehow upset, that only proves one thing, that you are doing the right thing. So continue to do it, and you will feel that the Chinese criticism is unwarranted. And continue to speak with Taiwan to make sure that we understand with each other and we can continue to strengthen our people-to-people ties.
Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to us. It's a pleasure speaking to you at length on several issues, and this shows how strong the India-Taiwan relationship is.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.